Hello, I'm Georgia Raisman. I'm hosting Front Up this morning, and my guest is Tucker Holland, a longtime Nantucketer, almost all his life, who is right now independent consultant to the town of Nantucket on the topic of housing. Tucker, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Georgia. Pleasure to be here.
By way of background, would you indicate for the listeners who don't know you already what you have been working on with the town in terms of affordable housing and the housing crisis that we're facing right now?
Sure. So really through my involvement on the board of the Community Foundation, we keep our fingers on the pulse of the issues that are facing the island. And obviously for a few years, housing was right at the top of the list and still is. And as a result of doing some work at the foundation, trying to keep a spotlight on the topic and so forth, but knowing that the foundation itself isn't the doer, isn't going to be creating the housing, that led to an opportunity for Remain Nantucket very generously to sponsor a grant for some consulting work where I was engaged with the town for a year as the independent housing consultant. As you said, the town ended up extending that by another 6 months, and actually very recently I have come under the town full time as the housing specialist is the term.
Excellent.
Yep.
And I understand that you recently led a group of people who were successful in getting something through the legislature at the state level.
Well, you're giving us more credit than we're due yet, so yes, we have House Bill 2794, which is a home rule petition from Nantucket coming out of town meeting this year, where it was unanimously supported a housing bank that really would be a funding stream somewhat in the vein of the land bank, much more modest, but would be dedicated exclusively to affordable and workforce housing. And so a group of us, 10 folks, plus Representative Dylan Fernandez, who is the sponsor of the bill, along with Senator Julian Sir, went up and testified back in June before the Joint Committee on Revenue. And we were very pleased that just a couple weeks ago, the Joint Committee favorably voted out this bill, only one of 11 bills that they did vote favorably on.
That's excellent.
So yeah, so we're not at the finish line, but that was very encouraging. We had received a similar favorable vote from a joint committee last year. This is really a continuation of an effort from last year, the same exact bill, but we kind of ran out of time last year. It was a late introduction and we knew it wasn't likely to get through the last year, but we're quite optimistic about this year.
And what's the next step for that bill?
So the next step is that it needs to go through what's called bills in third reading, and when a bill comes out of there, then it's really, as I understand it, ready to be voted on by the whole of the House, and then it would go over to the Senate side. But you know, it's sort of like I'm definitely being reminded in my day life of a play my son was in last winter, Schoolhouse Rock Live, and Bill's journey, if viewers remember the Schoolhouse Rock segments from, yes, exactly. And so we're, it is a long road to, you know, becoming law, but this is an effort that I think is widely supported on the island, and actually had the opportunity recently to meet with both the lieutenant governor and the governor on this specific measure.
What was your reading of their?
They were. I was very impressed with them, and they immediately got it. They asked some very good questions. I think they liked what they heard, and the governor said, you know, that this makes a lot of sense in a place like Nantucket.
So there doesn't seem to be any reason at the Senate level that this should encounter opposition, or serious opposition?
The only opposition that we're aware of is from the off-island realtor community. So local realtors are generally very supportive of it. but the Mass Association of Realtors has lobbied against the bill, and their principle is, well, we have a long-standing policy of opposing any sort of fee whatsoever, and it's not really a reasoned philosophy, but that's their position, and
Well, they're powerful. They're potentially a powerful.
they are.
lobby.
They're a powerful lobby, but I think when we were meeting with the governor and lieutenant governor, right before I had the opportunity to talk about this subject, he and the lieutenant governor had been talking about how they really don't like imposing statewide mandates on communities, that each community is individual.
So that's what we've done.
So that's what we've done, exactly. I said,
right.
you're singing my song,
Right.
and then we got into
Well,
it.
hopefully that will happen then,
Exactly.
even if it's a couple of years down the road. Well, tell us about something more recent, like Six Fairgrounds.
Six Fairgrounds, very exciting. The immediate prior Board of Selectmen, that was one of the principal assignments in my consulting engagement, was to help the board find consensus around issuing an RFP to develop workforce housing at the town-owned property on Fairgrounds Road. And so
That's where the police station now
yeah,
is.
next door to the current police station and where the future fire station is planned. So roughly 3 acres of town land. And last January, the immediate prior board unanimously voted to issue the RFP. We had a lot of great folks, experts involved in providing insight and guidance on crafting the RFP and the types of things.
RFP is a request for
A
proposal.
request for proposals, yes, thank you. So we put this out for bid. We received 3 bona fide proposals, and a review committee was put together, again, with some real expert folks on it.
How many units would be involved at Six Fairgrounds?
So it's 64 units, and the bid was awarded just a few weeks ago by the Board of Selectmen to a firm called Hall Keene. Their partner in the venture is Williams Building Company. Their references checked out, quite well. I think some viewers may be familiar with them. They inherited an involvement in Academy Hill, which is it's a small project in a sense for them, and so they've really been looking for a reason to be more involved here, and so this provided an opportunity to try to do that, and they clearly put their best foot forward on this proposal.
What are going to be the criteria for buying into or renting, or is it going to be rental?
It's all rental, and approximately 75 to 80% of the units will be restricted at different income levels, and the remainder will be at market rate. So it really is intended to serve, all levels of the workforce here
And the
economically.
town will be the landlord, essentially.
Actually, Hall Keene will be the landlord. So the town is leasing the land to Hall Keene on a long-term basis, and that's kind of what the town said, this is our contribution, if you will, is this long-term lease. Otherwise, financially, Hall Keene, you're responsible financially from soup to nuts. So they really are taking on the risk of the whole project.
Which isn't very large, considering the demand for housing.
Considering demand, yes, they clearly felt
Although if
comfortable.
they're limited in how much rent they can charge, I guess there's that element of risk.
There is that element of risk, although they're very experienced in this area, and they'll be seeking some subsidies from different programs in order to make
Right.
those numbers work.
Right.
They have a strong track record of securing these types of subsidies,
Right.
and
Good.
early indications are that the state may look very favorably on this
And
project.
these will be stick-built or prefab?
I believe it'll be a stick-built project. Yeah.
So is there anything else like that that's within the town's purview right now? The town owns land here and there.
The town has additional land around this same site, and we're looking at sort of a phase 2 in terms of what might come next. Probably it would be more in the individual residential home style. These are 3 larger apartment-style buildings, but architecturally, we think they really put a lot of thought into making it work with the Nantucket aesthetic. And so it's not just a large box. It really is quite attractive.
What sort of studies have been done about how much affordable housing is actually needed on Nantucket? Do we have a number for that?
Well, it's a great question, Georgia. So one number that we know we need to hit is what is referred to as the 10% number, the subsidized housing inventory, SHI or SHI.
Right, because if we don't get that, then developers can come in willy-nilly and put housing wherever they like.
Yeah, pretty much that's exactly how it works. It's a very big stick from the state to say, hey, if you're not solving your own problem, then we're going to
to the 10% mark.
Yeah, to the 10% mark, we're gonna let developers help you solve that. And right now, Nantucket is at 121 units toward its 490 unit requirement for that 10%.
So it's about 20% of the way there, a little more than 20%.
Exactly. But so we're at 2.5 of the 10%, and we we've got a ways to go. But the Six Fairgrounds project, in addition to the Richmond Development Group's project on Old South Road, which is even more substantial, between those two alone, when they reach the required milestone to be counted, those would bring us more or less to 9%. So we really would be in striking distance of reaching that 10%.
Good. But then let's deal with the implications of all that, right? We have more density and we have more cars.
Well, that is a assertion that some folks might bring up. I might say that a lot of these folks who will be occupying these residences actually are here today, living in maybe less than desirable circumstances. So part of the reason I say that is we did an elective survey last year of all town departments. It went to all members of the Chamber of Commerce. It went to all nonprofits on the island. Again, it was elective to participate, but roughly 183 different nonprofits, departments of the town, et cetera, responded. Those employers represented approximately 2,200 full-time employees. And so they indicated to us that of those 2,200, roughly half are not in suitable, stable, affordable housing to them.
Yes, but you're making the assumption that once we empty out that unsuitable housing, it will stay empty. The other argument is that it'll simply be occupied by new people coming to the island.
There are probably some circumstances that may be true, but there are also other circumstances where I think the majority of the circumstances is where you have more people forced living together.
Who would prefer not to.
Who would prefer, if two families in a basement separated by a curtain, I don't think they're going to be two new families moving in.
I hear what you're saying, but I do think there's always such a pressure of people who would like to live here that those two families may move out and 10 unrelated individuals might move in. But the second point is cars.
Well, if I can just stick on that for a second, because one of the conundrums, frankly, that the town has had is when it comes to enforcement of some of the substandard situations. And right now you can imagine, because there is nowhere to go, if you're in a substandard situation, you're probably pretty hesitant to raise your hand. And so I think with the addition of more inventory, you're going to see more folks raising their hand, and that will allow the town to do more enforcement.
I would hope that happens.
I hope so. I'm not going to pretend to know the total traffic answer.
I wonder a little bit whether nobody's looking at the larger picture, and these things are sort of happening in pieces, and then we're all of a sudden faced with 2,000 more cars.
Well, again, I can speak to Six Fairgrounds Road,
Right,
and
right.
again, my belief that a lot of the folks who will be occupying that facility are here today. So
Right.
it's not really an addition of cars. It may change some traffic patterns, of course, but that will be looked at.
When do you think Six Fairgrounds will be finished and occupied?
Well, so the developers have jumped right on this, and I mentioned the subsidies before. So the subsidies are typically awarded in one round a year, which happens at the beginning of the calendar year. So they are moving very expeditiously to be able to
their
submit
proposals in.
for those rounds, and they have to have their permitting in place in order to be qualified to submit. So
I'm sure the town is helping them expedite their permitting, I hope.
So we are having, we had the opportunity to talk to a couple of board representatives to get some initial feedback on, how they feel the process should work, and, just in general, what they thought of where things were in terms of the original proposal. And so far, we've gotten some, very favorable feedback, and I think everyone is trying to pull in the same direction, obviously wanting to ensure that it is a high quality project that, again, aesthetically fits into the
So
entire.
if they get their proposals in and they get their funding, then they begin construction next year, one hopes, and then how long after that would
Yeah,
they?
so in an ideal world, they would receive the funding in this first round. Now, I'm going to say that it is typical that you do not receive funding in the first round that you apply for. It is the practice, really, that it's the second time you apply.
So we're looking at 3 to 4 years down the road.
It could be as much as 3 to 4 years. Now, I will say that we anecdotally understand that this project might be viewed very favorably because there is such desperate need here, and it is a well thought out plan, et cetera.
And they're well regarded.
And they're well regarded,
Yep.
and so forth. And we've, again, some of the folks who have been involved with the RFP and evaluation process, I'll mention Laura Schufeld from Mass Housing Partnership. There is a cautious optimism that we might actually get funding in the first round, which would be tremendous.
And even though if we did, then we're still looking at breaking ground next year and occupation 18 months after that? you think, or-
I don't want to speak for the developer,
Right.
but if we receive those subsidies the first go round, then we may be looking at more like a 2-year schedule.
Yeah. Well, that would be very, very nice.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you so much for coming, Tucker.
Well,
It's
I
been a
appreciate
pleasure
the
having you.
opportunity.
I
Thanks so
I
much.
look forward to hearing more good news in the future.
I look forward to sharing good news.
Okay,
Thank you.